Yeah, great. Thanks, Nick. So Erik Westblom, co-founder and CEO of Provision Analytics. I'm joined by Tricia Holst, our head of product. We'll take you through a little background on the company here that we started back in 2018. So, as mentioned, started in 2018. Provision is a software platform built as a web application to streamline all aspects of food quality, compliance, food safety, and everything that goes into and surrounds all of those processes at food companies today. Going back 4 years ago, we started the business while I was in Copenhagen, Denmark, working with Maersk, really looking at the opportunities that are in the food supply chain, but coming to the realization that so much paperwork around quality, compliance, regulatory, it has largely been pushed to the back burner, and there was a major opportunity to convert companies from analog to digital. Since then, kind of fast forwarding, we now have over 400 companies using the platform, many of those at the farm level. We've then built a partner network or partner footprint that is spanning 100 countries. We're really looking to exploit that in 2023. At this point, we're a little over 700,000 in annual recurring revenue with a solid cash position of about $5.5 million US, and some outstanding grant revenue that's coming to us from the Canadian government in the next 6 months. So right now, that gives us a current runway of about 2.5 years. We're looking to compress that by pushing it into sales in the next 6 to 9 months. In speaking about that paper-based background, the biggest learning that we've had in talking to our customers and prospects is still it's roughly 95 to 97% of companies globally are doing all this regulatory effort on paper, spreadsheet, chalkboard, cardboard box, even worse. We've seen annualized spending in North America alone for food safety kind of swelling past 10 billion, with a remaining serviceable obtainable market of a couple $100 million right now alone. If we take a look at how that's distributed, we did a big analysis of a significant data set of greater than 300,000 food companies in the supply chain in North America. And what we found is that so much of it is heavily weighted in that front half or the lower half, the SMB market. So small, medium, even large to a certain extent, size companies, where a lot of the competition in this space is really focusing on those extra large businesses, right? The really large established ones generating greater than $1 billion in revenue, leaving this massive opportunity at the bottom end of the market. So I'll hand it over to Tricia now with just some context on the solution of what we've built. We'll unwind things from there.
Awesome. So as Erik has outlined, our product is focused on solving problems for companies who have food safety requirements and emphasis on quality. So if you aren't familiar with food safety or the food safety space, there are dozens of different food safety schemes and related certifications. Some fit best at the root with agriculture and our farm clients, others adapt better to packers and distributors, and some really are designed to meet the needs of complex manufacturing for food products. These programs are really interesting in that they are custom built to meet the needs of the specific commodity. They must also achieve requirements for audits, all of this while accommodating variables in operations such as equipment, layout, and the location itself. No two operations have identical food safety plans, and more excitingly, the Provision application is flexible and configurable to any of the 6 food safety programs under the GFSI umbrella. So believe it or not, food safety and certifications are not always at the forefront of our customers' expertise. Many of them rely on outside consultants to build their programs. And a lot of the individuals who are actually filling out these mountains of foundational paperwork have low understanding of food safety outside of their own prescribed plan. Compound that basic domain knowledge with often low digital literacy or the inconsistency of seasonal workers, and we as a product have a tough problem to solve. Our tool must not only be flexible and support the complicated and changing programs, but it also has to ensure success for our customers who need those high audit scores to access the market for their product. All of this while being as simple to use as paper. So there are many ways we've helped our clients manage those challenges. The activities in a food safety program can be regularly scheduled, and some of them are ad hoc, but for records that need to be filled out daily, biweekly, semi-annually, or anything in between, we ensure that that burden is relieved from our food safety managers by automating those reminders and providing the visibility into ongoing compliance risk. This ensures records are completed when they need to be, and our clients are not losing those valuable audit points because they've missed or have a late record. So we know that many operators filling out these forms are not food safety experts, and food safety managers can't be standing beside them, ensuring that everything is filled out with no mistakes and that everyone follows process. But when your audit scores determine whether or not you get to sell to Costco or you get that all important organic certification, you are inclined to do just that and micromanage each piece of paper. So instead, we allow the expectations for completion to be managed by the form itself, empowering those operators with rules, validation, and the workflows they need for that record to be completed right the first time. As I've highlighted, audits are business critical events, so preparing for those audits is key to success. But when really small missteps like incomplete entries, missing forms, spelling errors, or even illegible handwriting results in deductions to scores, the stress levels rise immensely. So we alleviate that pressure. We ensure that history is accurate, data is complete, all the non-conformances are identified and managed, and this means our clients are always audit ready. So food safety isn't only about passing audits, and quality, of course, isn't just a stamp. Our clients genuinely care about how their products are received by their customers. So continuous improvements to their processes and the ability to identify weakness or risk are massive benefits that paper just cannot provide. So lastly, many of our clients understand that the rigorous and detailed nature of those food safety programs actually provide data points throughout their operations that have historically been ignored or just filed away in binders. And we want to help them unlock that value.
So the cool thing about this, as Tricia's highlighted, the way the product's broken down, it's very flexible for us to get into any market, any food commodity, any node in the food supply chain. But as we start to roll this out, the execution's critical. We can't just go out firing a shotgun into the sky and hoping that we're closing deals. Our primary go-to-market strategy has been built around supporting the antiquated network that has existed in food safety for 50, 60, 70 years. In mid-2021, we launched the Provision Partner Reseller Program, hoping to have success in signing 5 of these partners to that. So the typical target market we're going to is food safety consultants that are building, monitoring, supporting these programs for clients on paper. We're going out to them, partnering with them and saying, listen, if you work with us and introduce us to your existing suite of clients, depending on the level of rigor you want to get into in our reseller program, we'll pay you 10% of the first year's SaaS. If you want to support them at level 2, we can give you 10% of SaaS for support. And then ultimately, if you're level 3, a full value-added reseller, we're willing to give up to 80% of the service implementation plus that SaaS trailer. That gives us tremendous market exposure and access to growing the application and growing the team and provision at a level of scale that's quite frankly unprecedented. That goal of signing 5 in 2021 was shattered. We signed 18 by the end of the year, and as of right now, we have 26 signed. The most exciting thing about this is some of them are 1 or 2-man operations, while others are as big as DNV. So DNV, who's also a strategic investor of ours, they're the largest certifying body for food safety in all of Europe, holding about 55 to 60% of the market. And just last week, we signed another partner who is the largest in Central and South America. So this is fundamental to our growth and accessing different markets and helping us build that up without the ongoing cost of hiring a bazillion salespeople. The idea there is it's driving this revenue growth. In the last 5 months only, that market conversion and all the associated ARR is up 71%, bringing on some substantial deals. BC Tree Fruit, Productus Chata in Mexico, the Sage Packing Group, and Indianapolis Fruit. But what's interesting, and this is the key differentiator for provision, if you look at this graph, the data graph is doing the same thing. We reserve the right to aggregate and anonymize all the data that we capture. We believe that that happens and helps us build the strategy from acquisition of data to formatting in our own proprietary data lake and eventually monetizing some insight on that. So the 5-year data vision that is built in lockstep with the commercialization of the business looks like this. Historical reporting for clients this year, deviation trending for next year, and then working into client and industry benchmarking, food loss and ESG insight, and insurance risk scoring. Food safety records are the only place within a food company you can capture that level of granularity and unique data to build these insights. Notionally, the ESG market, we've estimated at about $5 billion TAM, the insurance risk scoring market at over 52 billion, and food loss analytics at 7 trillion alone. These are absurd numbers, but if you dig in and really do the analysis of where the value is lost in the food supply chain, there's some pretty big opportunity. We've built the team with substantial software and food background. Myself, I grew up on a grain and bison ranch, just about 20 years in software. Tricia's nearing 20 years in software. Kevin Davies, our head of marketing, has already exited a food company. Terry Thibodeau, 25 years in software growth and scale. Mike Meinhardt worked 30 years in various aspects of food and entertainment, including the NFL, Molson, Gatorade, Red Hat Cooperative. And Michael Gibbons, one of the other co-founders of the business, significant background in machine learning and AI. Lastly, to put a cherry on this, our board of directors is then built up with quite a humbling group of individuals. Nancy Smith, the former CFO of Canada's largest oil and gas investment bank, is our chair. Brian Craig, former CEO of Solium Capital, built and sold for nearly $1 billion. Mark Cunningham, former CEO of Crystal Decisions, has built and sold 4 different data companies for an aggregate 1.6 billion. And John Spencer, one of our key investors, the managing partner at TriWest Capital. And that's it.
All right. Wow. Thanks so much to both of you. That was great. And like so many standout Canadian startups we run into, there's great government support there. Something that we're quite envious about here. Howard, I see you made it in. Love to hear from Howard. Anyone else in the audience who has a question before we move on?
Well, I have questions, but I'll let others pipe in first if they have questions.
I have a question. Hi, Erik. My name is Carson Britz. I'm the sustainability lead for the Western US for Nutrien. And we're looking at some different opportunities and solutions. And you mentioned the ESG component. So be curious to hear a little bit more about that as we look to explore options, primarily on ESG opportunities.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know if you want to get into it now or wait until we're there next week, but ESG, as you know, my quick opinion on this is it's kind of like how long is a piece of string? Everybody has their own analysis or their own perspective on what ESG means. I think that it starts with capturing that data. So that's how we're looking at it from a food safety perspective, is how much can we capture so that if you want to know about water usage, if you want to know about electricity usage, you want to know about GHG emissions, you're capturing that data along the way so that you can flavor an ESG report to what someone's looking for. We're not there yet. I think, quite frankly, we need more industry feedback from individuals like yourself.
Good deal. See you next week. Thank you.
Okay, let me lob in my question. So, Erik, what you're trying to do seems to be very hard. Perhaps you'll agree with that. And, generally speaking, things that are hard to do are risky, but if you're successful, they can be quite rewarding. Some of the hard things that it struck me listening to you that you're trying to do is, among other things, you're trying to work with what I assume is a very complicated and multi-layered regulatory regime across many jurisdictions. There are probably a lot of other hard things that you could describe for us, but tell us about what are the hardest things that you have to overcome. And I assume that's part of the reason why no one's ever been able to accomplish yet what you're trying to do, I assume.
Yeah, I can comment first, then I'm sure Tricia's got similar or maybe even differentiating opinions. I think there are two elements that make the ultimate vision of what we're doing difficult. One is the flexibility of these food safety programs. So under GFSI, the Global Food Safety Standards entity, they've been driving a lot of these regulatory pushes down to retailers and beyond in alignment with the Food Safety Modernization Act in the last decade to try to create some level of alignment globally. Even with that, there are 6 programs under GFSI, and those can be further extrapolated to 36. Underneath those 36 different derivatives of food safety, Howard, you can have a seafood company and I could have a seafood company, and they can be radically different implementations of a food safety program. The same would go for fruits, vegetables, nuts, chocolate, beef, dairy, you get the idea. So inherently in configuring those solutions and rolling it out, it creates a level of inconsistency in the data and how we can build that up into a data lake. So that's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is then actually pulling out and understanding those data points themselves to roll it into an AI or machine learning model. Most people on the call would be familiar that AI is only as powerful as the structure of your data and the quality of your data. So that's the second piece. It's one thing to configure everything. It's the second thing to organize it in a way that's consumable. We've made substantial progress on that, but there's a reason that there's a 5-year time horizon behind that data look. Tricia, anything to add?
I think I would just say that one of the things we've noticed is, as different as all of these programs are, in that they're structured differently. And if we look at the pieces of paper that arrive as part of these programs, they look very different when you just look at them simply. When we break them apart into actual components and sections, and we think of them more as units that are assembled, there's a lot more commonality amongst them, even in the simple language that's used. So I think we're starting to see those patterns the more clients we get onboarded, and we're starting to hear a lot more familiar vocabulary. So I think we're going to be able to start drawing those parallels in a lot quicker succession as we move forward, so we can identify those patterns just based on the similarity of components amidst all these programs.